Winning the moment is just deciding instantly, like, I'm going to do this thing. Yeah. Moving the bracelet, getting that dopamine hit, and making a commitment before your brain gets to sell you out of it. And if you think about relationships you have with people, if you have a friend who says, like, I'm going to come over and watch the game with you tonight, and he never does, eventually you're like, bro, you're full of shit. Like, you're never coming to watch the game.
100%.
Our mind is no different. If you keep telling yourself you're going to do something and you never do it, eventually your mind knows you're also full of shit. And so it doesn't even have any value anymore.
Today we had Cody Adent on, and it was an awesome show. I learned a ton about how to win the moment, and we talked about identity, vision, and keeping commitments to yourself, which I think was one of the big mindset shifts that I had.
For sure. I think you guys are going to really enjoy today's show and getting to know him and his story. It's just amazing, taking himself in such a vulnerable state and just taking control of his life and being able to push through and overcome. So I think there's so many people can be able to relate to it, and yeah.
You're going to love it. This episode is brought to you by Big Storage Ventures. We are now inviting you to team up and partner alongside us. We bring our experience hunting storage deals and maximizing the self-storage asset to provide our partners with cash flow, tax benefits, and appreciation, all in one recession-resistant asset. Leverage our sister company, Big Ben's Moving Service, to fill your facility and give you an edge over the competition. Reach out to bigstorageventures@gmail.com or DM Big Storage Ventures on Instagram to team up.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. We're good, excited to get to know you, and I'm excited to hear more about your book. Honestly,
Yeah, I hope you like it.
I hope we can go into it a lot more, and I just, scrolling through and like the quotes on the front. So
I met you on Monday, and we basically hit it off, and we said, okay, we can either do it this Friday or in May. And we're like, we got to do it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so on Wednesday night, I stayed up late. I read as much of the book as I can, enough that I feel like it was very impressive.
Oh, that's great.
We're really excited to have you on, man, and maybe catch our listeners just up on kind of your journey. You're telling me a lot about some of the crossroads that you've gone through to get to where you are today.
Yeah, so I think if I'm going to take that and make it, a short synopsis of what my life was, I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, like as a kid, like selling stuff in my wagon, building gift shops in my basement, creating movie theaters. Like if there was a way to make money, then I was into it, and I just always had that. So naturally, and I also had a hard time learning. That's really important for me to share that. Like I just my brain couldn't process information the way that education wanted me to process it. It's not that I didn't get it or I couldn't get to the answer. I just couldn't do it the way that they wanted. Right. And so I knew school is not for me. Like it just wasn't going to be my path. And my parents didn't have the funds to pay for school. And so it was like, okay, I can either go get a loan for school or I can get a loan for business. And to me, it was like, well, I'm gonna get a loan for business because at least then I'm in control and I have a chance to earn that money back. Right. And I'm going to learn a lot faster too. I learn better doing than like sitting and being instructed. Yeah. So that's how I started my first business when I was 19. I got really lucky and sold that in April of 2008. And there's a story to that, but super lucky because we know the economy crashed in October of 2008. So fortunate for me that I was able to exit, sell it, created my first business, sold my first business. Then I got into the corporate world where I really learned a lot, and that taught me really how to execute and become a leader. And I had a great mentor who, without him, I wouldn't have learned all of those skills. So I was so thankful for that. Did that for a long time. And then when my wife and I were ready to start a family, we're like, let's go back to St. George. So I got recruited to come fix a wireless market here. Did that. Then my wife got pregnant. And the second that happened, it was like my entrepreneurial spirit kicked back in because I was like, oh no, like I'm not going to be able to create the life I want for my wife and child working for somebody else. Like I got to do something for myself. And I didn't know what that was going to be. But
interesting. One
of my managers and one of my best friends, his name was Zach, he came to me and said, hey dude, do you want to make some money? And I said, yes, of course. And he said, well, here's the deal. You may never get paid. And it's not going to be very fun. And I said, sign me up. And so, cause it was one of those, like not door to door, but like that space of sales where it's like, you never really know, it could be, it could be awesome. It might not. Right. And so what ended up being is a friend of ours, James, had got a contract with the Wall Street Journal and you could get 12 weeks for $12. of the Wall Street Journal. And if you signed up for it at a game, we'd give you an item. So we were at a BYU football game. We created BYU hoodies. We got the permission from BYU to trademark their logo. And so it's like a $60 hoodie, right? Value wise at the stadium. So for $12, you get a $60 souvenir. It's awesome. Everyone said yes.
Wow.
So we killed it. And then so we did all the BYU games and we got paid. So that was even better. And that like started me building my funds for like, okay, my daughter's coming. Like this is that money to make that happen. And then after football was over, the Wall Street Journal was so happy that like, we're going to give you guys a couple college basketball teams. So we got the contract for UNLV. So after we worked on our wireless stores all day, we'd drive to Vegas, work a game that night, come back, we'd get home at like 3:00 in the morning, do it all over again. And so after that was up, we were like, man, this is really something. Like we could do something here. And so we both quit our jobs. We secured a contract with the Wall Street Journal in Houston with the Houston Astros. And then we went to the Houston Chronicle and said, hey, look, we're doing this for the Wall Street Journal. You should really let us do it for you too. And they said, let's do it. And so then we moved. My daughter was 6 months old. I had no salary. It was all commission based from the publications. And we built a huge sales team. We ended up getting it in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, Cincinnati, Denver, Vegas, Phoenix, San Diego, LA. So we built it all over the place. And then once my son was born, it was like, all right, it's time to go back home. So that brought me back to St. George. And that's how I got into tourism. And that's what brought me here today.
That's awesome, man.
There's a lot of meat in that.
I want to ask about your friend, because the guy who offered you, hey, you want to make some money, but you might never make any money.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I heard.
Yeah.
And was it, how did you read that opportunity the right way? Was it just you trusted your friend, or was it you just had a hunch, or what did you see about the opportunity?
It must have been high risk, high reward, right? There must have been a big reward.
Yeah, it was good. Like we made like $900 in like a couple hours at a BYU game. But what my friend was saying is that he was saying, I have an opportunity for you, but don't hold me accountable to it, right? Like we may go work and we may make money, but like the paycheck just might not come. Yeah. And if it does, don't come to me and be like, where's my paycheck? Basically, right? But there's only a few guys who get to do it. You should be one of those guys. Just know that like maybe it doesn't work. You know, maybe we go work a game, we never get paid, and that's the end of it. Or maybe we go do it and it's amazing and it changes our lives.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this a little bit because this is a unique opportunity. You said it was rare. Like he was giving you a solid, like I can pick anyone. This is a super rare opportunity. I'm going to pick you.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like in your mind? What are you thinking about the job that you had? Like you were working, did you have any fears?
I had a great job in St. George, right? So I was a district manager for a wireless company. I had a nice salary, I had a company car. Like it was good. Like I could have had a good life forever. I could have just done that forever. But I didn't have enough control of my life, right? Like there was only so much I could do and it wasn't mine. And so I was just building income. I wasn't building wealth. So if at any time I stopped working, the money stopped. Right. And so it's like knowing that I was bringing like another person into the world, I just wanted to be able to create more for her specifically, you know?
Have that freedom and that time.
Yeah.
And have you always had that mindset, or did you have something that triggered that type of mindset?
Well, I always had that entrepreneurial fire, like as a kid, like I said, right? It's like even at lunch, I'd get $5 a day for like to buy lunch at school, and I'd get a bagel and cream cheese because it was $1. So then I would have $4 left over, and I would take that and I'd get $20 a week of profit. And then I would use that to buy used Jordans. I'd clean them up and I'd resell them. You know, it's like I was always looking for that opportunity. Yeah. But I think what really helped me is my parents were teachers growing up. So we had like a good, nice, stable life. My parents are amazing. Then my dad got on to being an entrepreneur. And so there were some really high peaks and there were some low valleys. And what was unfortunate for them is that they didn't understand money. So when the peaks came, they weren't prepared for the valleys. And so I think that's what gave me that desire to be like, I'm never going to be in that situation. And so there was no one to teach me about finances in my life. So that's when I just got a thirst for knowledge and I picked up books and I read every book on money that I could, because it was like, I can't go to them for that guidance. And I didn't really know anyone in my life I could go to, but there's a bunch of experts out there that already figured it out. Why not get some advice from them?
For sure. That's why books are so amazing.
Yeah.
And that's why you obviously got your own book.
Yeah.
I mean, tell us what prompted Winning the Moment?
So I always wanted, because those books made such a difference in my life, like they truly did. They changed my life. And so it was like, man, I would love to one day be able to do that for somebody else, like pay it back, you know? Right. And like the premise of the book, what started it all was in 2018, I'd gotten overweight and I wasn't taking care of myself. And I was like really reflecting on like, as I was getting ready for the new year, what is happening? Because I've always been successful professionally. Like in any endeavor I've ever done, I've been successful, been the top at whatever it was that I was doing. So why can I always show up for other people, but I can't show up for myself? What's causing that? And so as I did some introspection, it was like, okay, first I have to define it. That's one problem, because at work it's defined. What does success look like? They tell me. So I do that thing. In life, it wasn't really, I didn't define it for myself, right? There's obviously society's definitions of success. And that to me was kind of just work and money. So I felt like I was doing it. I never really said what's going to get my life to be the best for me. So I decided like, okay, these are the things that matter. So I made a spreadsheet and it was just simple. Yes or no. Did I do it? Did I not do it? Because humans love rewards, right? We love dopamine. We love accomplishing things. And so now I had that source of accountability. And so I ended up having the most amazing year I've ever had. Like I lost 40 pounds. I read a bunch of books. I did all the things I'd been trying to do. I got into meditation. I was finally like living my best life. And so in 2019, in January, I did that in 2019. So in January of 2020, I did a LinkedIn post, and I didn't have any social media at the time but LinkedIn. And it was like, I'd get 5 likes or 8 likes, whatever. It's not like I had a real following, and I didn't really post very much, but I thought I better put this out there because I imagine I'm not the only person who succeeds professionally and fails personally, right? Especially on this platform with a bunch of professionals. And I didn't think anything would really come of it, but I put it out there and I said, look, I will give this spreadsheet away for free because it's not a business. It's just like, it worked for me. And if it can work for you, that's awesome. So I did that, and the post blew up like Tony Robbins numbers, like 2,500 likes, over 500 comments, a bunch of shares, like 250,000 views. It went all over the world. Like I got interviewed for an article in London. People in Detroit were commenting, and I made like hundreds of spreadsheets for people. And then they would reach back out to me like throughout the year and update me like, oh, your spreadsheet's working. Like, thank you so much. So then obviously that's 2020. I'm in tourism and hospitality. So March 13th, our world shatters. And looking back on it now, like I took that opportunity to be a victim and just be like, ugh, everything sucks. Like my gym's closed. I'm not going to work out. I don't even have a job to go to because all of our clients got rid of us. So I can just kind of watch Netflix and hang out. And I ruined everything I'd built so quickly. Because just like stocks take forever to grow, but they can fall so quickly, our habits are the same way. It takes so long to build a positive habit, but once you stop, you can lose it instantly. And that's what happened to me. And so I ended up, because all of our clients at Vibrant let us go, I took a role with the Utah Tourism Industry Association as their executive director to like help them get through COVID and maybe do it for the rest of my life. I didn't know if we were ever going to come back. And at that event, I had to put on the Utah Tourism Conference, and I brought this speaker named Will Bowen, who wrote this book called The Complaint-Free World. And his idea, he was a pastor, and his idea was, if my congregation stops complaining, it'll be a better congregation. So he made bracelets, and every time you complained, you moved it from one wrist to the other. And I thought, I like that. There's something there, So then I was reading all these books on psychology and the mind at the time, and I thought I can incorporate my spreadsheet and the bracelets, and I can really make something work, because it wasn't working for me anymore. And so that's what brought this to life. And I realized there's about 10 times in the day where we can make a better decision. And if I can have that accountability piece that I've been missing, then it's going to allow me to really stay true to my goals. And I've got this visual reminder all day long of how am I doing on that journey. And then I've got, my community of people looking at my wrists and being like, oh, how you doing today? Like, where are you at? What can you do to move a bracelet? And so then I was like, man, this could be my book. And as the universe, I believe, always wants to support what we want for ourselves in life, opportunity came up with a publisher who reached out, and I had the idea, obviously, and they thought it was good enough to go forward with me, and that's kind of how it came to life.
Wow. What a cool story. I mean, just experience in general. I mean, I think there's just so much value and so much that out there. And one thing that sticks out to me is just vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right. There's fears associated with that, with becoming vulnerable, but you sharing your story and you having that realization that maybe someone else is going through this and I'm going to share this, and how that kind of rippled into so much. And I think many are crippled with fear and not being willing to share what they know because they feel like I don't know anything or I don't have any value to give.
Yeah.
And a lot of people struggle with that. And so it's cool to see, someone kind of just where the gears change, and then it's like, I'm going to take control and this is how I'm going to do it, and then helping other people.
Well, what's funny about what you said is the first chapter of my book is I know nothing. Because what do we really know? You know what I mean? Like I have ideas and thoughts and opinions, but like how many things do I definitively know? Not a lot, right? Because if I read a book on finances, what I learned is that no one agrees. Like this expert thinks one thing, you know, and then this expert thinks a completely different thing. So who's right? They're both right. You just take and choose what works for you. You know what I mean? Like there's not one way to live your life. There's a whole bunch of ways. And I think what matters is that you're living it for yourself.
Absolutely. I want to zoom in a little bit on keeping commitments to ourselves versus keeping commitments to other people, because for me, I attribute a lot of my success to being able to keep a commitment to someone else, right?
Sure.
Like I start with my business, I get a lead, and I commit to that customer or that team member or whatever I'm doing, and I put it on my calendar, I'm going to do it 100% of the time. If I commit and it's on my calendar, it's going to get done.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's, you know, some of the first steps to building wealth is just finding activities like that you can commit to, put on your calendar. Every time it happens, you're going to get dollars. Right?
Yeah.
But I think it's important that you teach about keeping commitments to yourself, because that's a little bit harder. A lot
harder.
Yeah. Okay. It's immensely harder because you're the only one that really knows about it. So teach us a little bit about how we can keep commitments to ourselves better.
I think it starts with defining what you want to be and do, right? Because I think so often we're just like in it. Like we didn't decide where we were born. We didn't decide our names. We didn't decide what our society was that we're going to be brought up in. Like it all just happens to us. And it's so easy to just get in it and just start going. So you really don't have a purpose. You're just really surviving every day. So I think in order to keep a commitment to yourself, you first have to have a purpose behind that commitment. Because if you're just like, I don't go to the gym every day because that seems like a good idea. Yeah. Well, tomorrow morning, it's like, I don't really feel like going to the gym, you know, because there's not a purpose behind it. It's just an idea. And so I think define your purpose or define success, whatever word you want to use for you. And then once you have that defined, you know what it takes to be that person you want to be. Like I know how to get 6-pack abs, right? I just don't have them, but I know how to do it. It's not like there's this quantum physics to it and I just can't figure it out. Like eat right, exercise, you can have abs, right? We've had them. It's prehistoric. They've always existed. The thing is, I just don't want to do the activities it takes to have them. You know, so I think figure out what you want and really make sure that it's something you do want. So then you will have that desire to go to it. And I think so much in our life, we're met with this choice of like, do I feel like doing something? And the thing is, none of us feel like doing it. Like today was Friday and I needed to do some financial work. I did not feel like doing it at all, you know, but I did because I knew that I needed to keep that commitment. And so I think don't let your brain trick you into not doing things because you don't feel like it. What separates the doers from the complainers, I think, is not allowing their feelings to stop them from doing what they know they should do.
I love that. Totally love that. I mean, there's so many ways to apply that in life and it happens so much. And that's something that I have seen in my own life and thought like, there's so many things that are good that we're never going to feel like doing. And exercising is one of the best, you know, parallels like to get into just because it's like, there's so many days, there's going to be days you don't feel like working out but if those that do and they stay consistent and they create those habits, it just, the result is in the end and you have to pay the dividend and pay the price now for it to be in the future.
Absolutely.
I think it's powerful thought.
And that's the idea of winning the moment. So Mel Robbins has a book called The 5-Second Rule. And her whole thing was like, she was in a bout of depression. Her business was failing. She was like behind on her finances and she was drinking too much and she couldn't get out of bed in the morning. And so one night she was like, man, I'm just going to jump out of bed like a rocket. So I'm going to count down and my alarm goes off 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm just going to boom, explode. And she did it and it worked. And the reason why is our mind instinctually wants to keep us comfortable. Right? Like it doesn't want us to be uncomfortable. So when that alarm goes off, you are so easily able to sell yourself on why it's better to stay in bed, you know? And so I read that I just barely finished it. So I didn't know it going into my book, Winning the Moment, but it's the same concept. Winning the moment is just deciding instantly, like, I'm going to do this thing, moving the bracelet, getting that dopamine hit and making a commitment before your brain gets to sell you out of it. And if you think about relationships you have with people, if you have a friend who says like, oh, I'm going to come over and watch the game with you tonight, and he never does, eventually you're like, bro, you're full of shit. Like you're never coming to watch the game. 100%. Our mind is no different. If you keep telling yourself you're going to do something and you never do it, eventually your mind knows you're also full of shit. And so it doesn't even have any value anymore.
Wow.
Right? You're in a constant struggle with your mind because because our minds are prehistoric. And back in the day when there was tigers and all these crazy animals that could kill us, it did need to keep us safe. Yeah. But that doesn't exist anymore, but our mind doesn't know the difference. And it can't tell the difference between reality and stories that we tell ourselves, right? So if you say like, oh yeah, I stayed up late last night. I just didn't sleep good. I really probably shouldn't go to the gym. I'll be better if I don't. That's an excuse, right? But our mind can't tell the difference. It's like, yeah, checks out, dude. Didn't sleep well. Don't feel good. Like let's sleep for 20 more minutes. Like that's way better, So you are always in a constant battle with your mind until you can start to have that confidence where you say, I'm going to do this thing, and you do it, and then your mind's like, oh yeah, he said it, so we're definitely going to do it.
Wow. I'm hearing having the vision is important. Having discipline is important. Being willing to do things after the emotion of the decision has passed.
Yeah.
And I think it just says a lot about, the whole process of winning the moment, right? And I think what I want to ask you is, how do people get from that spot they don't want to be to the spot where they just decide in that moment to make the harder choice or make the right choice? How do they go from getting in those slumps to getting in those good habits?
It's hard because I think the best advice is tough because it's so easy and basic, but it's just that you start. And no one loves that because it's like, well, can't you is there like a magic trick I can do or a drink I can drink or like a pill I can take? But no, it's just starting, right? And sometimes you need a tool. So I need a tool because I can be mentally weak. That's why I wear these bracelets, right? Because if just given to my own volition, I'll just talk myself out of it. Mel Robbins needed a tool, so she did the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing. So you may need a tool to get started, but once you've got it going, momentum works whatever way you're going. So if you've got positive momentum, then you're going to be able to keep doing it easier. But when you have negative momentum, everything is harder, and it's harder to stop that wheel when it's spinning backwards. It's going to take a heck of a lot of energy to stop that wheel and get it turned back over. And so I think you just have to go into it knowing the first 21 days or 30 days are going to be so much harder than the next 30. And you just got to make that commitment to yourself. And if you need a tool, then use it. But at the end of the day, the advice is just to start. If you don't like your life, then make it better tomorrow.
Well, and I think the way you started the conversation was the why. Right?
Yeah, the purpose.
And the purpose. And I think that coupled with the start, if you have that why and have that purpose. And so I want, the audience to maybe know you a little bit better.
Sure.
Or get to know you a little bit better. So maybe what was your why and your purpose that got you fired up and motivated?
Yeah, well, so I think that will always evolve for people.
Yes.
But if you go back to like my young adulthood, right? My purpose and my why was money. That's what I wanted. I didn't want to have the struggles that my family had. And I grew up playing sports and I loved winning, right? And so I also wanted to be the best at the thing I was doing. I wanted my peers and the people around me to look at me and be like, yeah, that dude, he's got it, And so that drove me to succeed professionally. But the problem was it was very short-sighted. So I sacrificed a lot in the beginning of my professional career at the cost of being the best. Thank goodness I didn't have kids at the time because my habits were not conducive to being present with my family, right? It was if it was our stores at the time closed at 9:00 and I would be on the phone in my office at 9:00 helping, doing whatever it took to succeed, which was great. And I'm glad that I did it. And I'm not advocating to not do that, but certainly now with the knowledge that I have, I don't live that life now, it's 5:00, I'm done, I'll talk to you on Monday, it's Friday, nothing, the world's not going to end between now and Monday. Yes. So I think,
although it is past 5 on
Friday, make it a sacrifice because I want to for my purpose.
All right.
And so then I think as my kids came, then my purpose became about being a provider and creating long-term stability for them. That's when my mindset shifted from income to wealth.
Well, you said when your wife got pregnant with your first kid, I think.
Yeah.
You immediately had a click. You had a new why. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. And because I was so focused in the beginning of my career on income, I need to make 6 figures, right? I just had that milestone. And so, what I didn't realize though, is that income stops when you stop. So it's that's not going to do me any good down the road, or if my skills dissipate or if something happens. And so then my purpose became about building wealth, which is creating a business that can earn without you, right? And then putting that income that you get into vehicles that can also create wealth for you. And then I think that morphed into freedom. Because ultimately now I want to do what I want to do because I want to do it, not because I had to. Like, it's not like I wanted to go to work every day and sell cell phones. It wasn't like, I didn't even care about phones. I could care less about the features. I didn't know any of it, you know? It was about succeeding through money and through recognition. But now really what I want to do is I want the freedom. Like, if my son has a soccer game, I want the freedom to be able to coach that, be at his games, pick him up from school if my wife's got something going on. Like, I want the freedom to live my life for me and not for somebody else.
Yeah, I love that you can transition. Like you said, like it can change and it can evolve, and just going, for those whys and switching through. So,
well, and I think too often people think it's like a weakness to change your mind. And it's like, I don't understand that. If I have new information now, why would I not pivot? Right? Like, and as sports announcers, they always get it all the time. Like, well, you said that they weren't going to be good. It's like, yeah. And then they made a trade and this guy got hurt and they're good now. Like, what do you want from me? So I think as you get new information, which I think you should always be striving for new information, whatever field you're in, whatever you're passionate about, whatever your purpose is, like fill it with as much information as you can so you can make the best decision possible for you.
Absolutely. Tell me about today's bracelets. And tell me how the system works.
Yes, absolutely. So this is my winning side. So I've got 7 on this side. So for me, the wins start in the morning, right? Like, to win my day, I got to win the morning. Like, in fact, I think for all human beings, our brain is the best in the first 3 hours. And I think the worst thing you can do is start your day for somebody else. Like, if you wake up, let's say you got to be at work at 9, you wake up at 8:30 because, you hit that snooze, and then you're just rushing to get to work. And so now you've been awake for 30 minutes and you're at work doing something for somebody else, and you never took the time for yourself. I think to your point earlier about commitments to other people, I wholeheartedly agree about that. It's just, you got to be the best version of yourself. So when you make those commitments to other people, you're giving them the best version of you. Yeah. And so for me, 5:40 in the morning, alarm goes off, boom, I'm up, no snoozes. And if you listen to a podcast I was on a couple weeks ago, I was snoozing, because I thought I can do one snooze and that's okay. Then I read Mel Robbins' book and realized that we have 90 to 110 minute sleep cycles. So if you hit that snooze, you restart your sleep cycle. And so even if you only snooze for 10 minutes, you're going to have 80 minutes of fog because your mind was told. So I already made that shift. I got new information, so I changed what I believe. So now as soon as it goes off 5:40, I'm up. I am doing the 6-phase meditation right now. So it's about an 18-minute guided meditation. That's the first thing I do. Then I read my 10 pages just to make sure that's done for the day. And then I go do my exercise. I'm 3 wins in now.
So that's each a bracelet.
Yep. Waking up's a bracelet. Meditating's a bracelet. Book is a bracelet. Then I do my exercise. That's a bracelet. And then I take like my AG1 and like all those vitamins and stuff. I don't really want to do that, but I do that. That's number 5. So now before I'm out the door, before I've started like my work day, I got 5 wins under my belt. So I have all this positive momentum. And the thing is, there's a science behind it called the winner effect. And so when you win, the chemistry in your brain changes and you instantly believe that you're smarter, you're better looking, you're more capable. And so once you get those wins stacked up, like I go into work like chest out, like I'm winning, like you just woke up. I already got my wins, like you can't catch me because I'm already ahead of you. And so I think it's so important, but I don't care what the wins are, which is really important. So like, yes, I got up at 5:40, but if you getting up at 9 a.m. is a win, you're in charge of that for you. Right. Like if you've been getting up at 10 every day and you get up at 9, that doesn't mean you didn't win. That's still a win. Like you define it for yourself.
Yeah. Have you heard of Andrew Huberman and the Huberman Lab? Okay. Anyways, I don't want to butcher the science because he's like a neuroscientist in Stanford.
Okay.
But he goes through the effects in the brain and the relationship between like dopamine, testosterone.
Oh yeah, I love
and
that.
Winning. So it's true science that that you get like there's a dopamine and testosterone hit from competition and from winning things.
Yeah.
And he talked about like how that hormone is so powerful.
Yeah.
It's like, it's behind motivation. And so
doing
those little things, literally there's like things that do happen in the mind but it's crazy that we learn stuff and we don't always do it.
Well, it's like if you have a checklist, or at least me anyways, and I did something that wasn't on it, I'm going to write that thing down first just so I can check it
Just so you
off.
can check it off.
Right? Because I want that dopamine. That's why I'm doing it. And so that's what the bracelets are meant to represent. So part of the idea is let's change a bad habit with a good one. So like for me, I love chocolate. So I'd go into the break room middle of the day, like 3 o'clock. I'm not feeling it anymore. And there's like a beautiful chocolate chip cookie. And I'm like, that's what I need. I don't need the cookie. I need the dopamine. Right. And so I would eat the cookie in the past and I would be really happy and I'd love the cookie. And then 20 seconds later, I'm like, damn it, why did I eat that cookie? Like, what is wrong with me? And then you start like talking badly about yourself. I'm such an idiot. Like, why can't I just not eat the cookie? So now I walk into the break room, I look at the cookie, I think about the cookie, I move the bracelet, I don't have the cookie.
Wow.
Because all I'm really trying to do is get that dopamine. And now I feel extra good because I made a good decision. I got the dopamine and I feel better about myself because I showed myself like I can have discipline.
Well, it's like building blocks too.
Yeah.
You do that and your strength to overcome that temptation increases.
Yeah.
At least that's what they taught me in Sunday school.
Yeah.
That like the more you,
It's true.
The more that you say no to like a temptation,
Yeah.
the stronger and stronger and stronger you're going to get. Like kind of like bracelets.
Yeah.
I think that probably happened in Sunday school too, where they did like rubber bands and it's like the more it's harder to rip those.
Your mind is a muscle. So if you exercise it, it's going to become stronger, right? So just like when we work our body out, if we keep lifting weights, we'll continue to be stronger. If we keep living up to the person we want to be, then we're going to be stronger. We're going to be stronger because of it.
Yeah.
Well, it is a momentum game, and I think you helped me wrap my mind around what you're teaching a little bit more when you talk about looking at the cookie and then moving the bracelet.
Yeah.
It's like that's your thing it's between you and yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So the bracelet, you're probably not reporting to maybe you tell your wife every day, but you're doing that for you. You're looking at your own wrist.
Oh yeah, no, it's just for me for sure.
Yeah.
Like you can look at me and see how I'm doing, right? But every day it's any different anyways, because once all these get to this wrist, then tomorrow I'll just go to this one, right? So you never necessarily know which
They all
ones.
start on the left.
No, I just move it. It's like today they'll all end up over here, and so tomorrow I'll
You'll
just
switch them to the other
move
side.
back to the other side, right? But yeah, you're right. It's totally for me. It's not for anybody else. And I think what's so important, I kind of touched on it, is like there's no how-to in here because I don't care about what your wins are. Everyone's on a different journey, you know? So like, I don't want someone who just graduated high school to be like, okay, this is what Cody's doing. That's what I'm going to do. Cause that was 17 years ago for me, you know, like I'm well into my race. You're just starting. Don't do what I'm doing. Define wins for yourself, you know, and everyone's got different emotional and mental states. And so if this can help them, like if they've got an addiction or if they've got depression and it can help them get out of that, then obviously those wins are going to look different than mine. Getting up out of bed at all might be a win for them. You know what I mean? Just like putting some clothes on and getting out of their bedroom might be a win.
But what's powerful is getting out of bed and then counting it as a win.
Absolutely.
And then building that momentum, right?
Right. Well, because a lot of people, especially the ones who are struggling, feel like they don't know how to win or they can't win or they're unable to win. And so now once you change the script and you get to define for yourself what a win is, for the first time in their life, they might feel like a winner. And that's powerful, right? Like when you feel, so and in the study of the winner effect, they put mice into a cage and they had them fight. And whatever mouse won every fight against that other mouse every single time forever. And eventually the mouse that lost just stopped coming up, stopped showing up to the arena, just wouldn't go over there because he's like, well, it's always bad for me, you know, like
The alpha mouse.
Yeah.
mouse.
And that mouse also is getting the loser effect of going into it thinking I'm going to lose, you know, and I think in my professional career, I didn't know this then, but I always just thought I was going to win. Like, oh yeah, my district's better than your district. My team's better than your team. It always started in my mind. Like before we actually ever did the job, I was like, oh yeah, no, we'll beat you.
Well, you said alpha male mouse as a joke.
Or alpha mouse and beta mouse.
I honestly think this is how alpha males are born, right? And I'm taking this from someone else, but I've heard those guys like the Ed Milet's and the Justin Princes. They say keep commitments you make to yourself, right? Because that's really how you build unbreakable confidence that no one can shatter is by keeping those commitments to yourself. And I think building upon wins is a momentum game. Like you're saying, once you're winning, you're more likely to keep winning. And I think it's awesome.
Well, one thing we didn't talk about either is how important losing is, right? Because what I don't want it to get lost is it's not like you got to win all the time always. Yeah. Like I've lost so many times, right? Like, and that's when you really learn, I think. And so like, if you think about the Super Bowl that just ended, like who do you think's more motivated right now for next year? Jalen Hurts or Mahomes? Hurts is, right, because he just took a loss. So he's in the room, he's grinding, he's looking at that film. He doesn't want to get back to the Super Bowl again and not win one. Right. And so I think losses are so valuable. And this isn't to say like, yeah, once you do this, you'll never lose again. You're going to lose all the time. But the difference is you realize the loss is just a loss in the moment. It's not a loss forever. Because I think too often we get devastated by our losses and it cripples us. But really, it's just an opportunity to learn. So and when you have that, so what I like to say is if you and I were playing checkers, we put the board down, we put our pieces down, I jump you first. Are you going to quit?
I hope not.
No, of course not. You're going to finish the game. But people do quit in their lives. I've done it. Like I started 75 hard. I got sick. And so I just quit. Instead of finishing it, I was like, oh, I lost, And so realize that in life, you're going to lose so often. And I think once you have that mental understanding of like, I will most likely lose more than I win, they become less devastating. And if you believe and know you're going to come out on the other side better because of it, then they can become a positive, right? Like, again, we're in control of our mind. And it's like, if you have anxiety or fear, like let's say you're afraid of public speaking and you're about to go on stage and your heart's racing and you're all nervous. And if you feed into that, then your body's going to be like, oh, this is not good. This is not good. We should not do this. We don't feel good. But if I change my mind and I say, I'm excited. I'm so excited to get on that stage. My heart's racing. My body's shaking. Then all of a sudden, I've changed the exact same situation from a negative to a positive just by how I think about it, right? So I've got a book in my book, a chapter in my book, Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. And it couldn't be more true because it all starts right here.
Well, you gave a perfect example of two scenarios. And in one with a certain mindset being an amazing experience, and another something you quit because you're uncomfortable or something like that. But I think that I want to do that more in my life. Like I want to be better at that in my life and not getting to, again, going back to feelings. Oh, you might think you're getting nervous going on stage and now those feelings are, I don't like these feelings. These aren't good feelings. Yeah. I probably shouldn't be doing this activity, right? I probably shouldn't be doing these good things. But it's being able to discern between those. I think what you're saying. Yeah. Discern between those. Help switch that mindset and continue to push through on those good things in the life that you're doing.
Well, and being that I have so much, like most of my hours of my profession are in sales. And so what I saw is that it was never about talent. It was about drive, determination, and mindset. Like the best guys were not necessarily the most talented. In time, they became the most talented because they took the most at bats. It's like if you and I stand next to each other for a year in some market and I talk to 100 people a day and you talk to 10, in 1 year, imagine how much better I am than you. Yeah. Even though we work the same amount of hours, but I've now had so many more, 3,000 more conversations than you. So now I am better, but it started in the mind. It started in saying like, I'm not letting someone walk past me without saying hi to them first, And so I think that it's less about your ability and more about what you believe you can do. And so that's what I think is important for anyone is like, if you're like, oh, well, I'm not really talented. I was never talented. I was always the worst kid on my sports teams. I wasn't fast. I wasn't strong. I wasn't coordinated. Like I had to work so hard to get the opportunity to be there. But because I never gave up, I was able to do that. And same with sales. Like I just worked so hard at it and committed to the craft that I eventually got good. But I wasn't gonna let someone outwork me. Like if you and I are side by side in an event, like even though we could be best friends, I'm thinking like, I'm gonna crush you today. Like I want us both to succeed. I'm gonna crush you though.
I love the attitude, man. Tell me if you could have readers that read your book walk away with one thing, one nugget, what would it be?
That they're in control of their life. I think too often we think life happens to us and we don't have control, but every single one of us, regardless of your situation, is absolutely 100% control of your life. So if your life is good, bad, or indifferent, the only person you have to blame or to give credit to is yourself.
Well, I think your story, when you talked about earlier, it's another great example of that. And in some of these, like the spreadsheet or the bracelet, some of these things are just tools to help people gain control. But the way I think of it is when you're in that state where you're ready to get control of your life, and then you think, okay, well, how does Cody going to do that? Well, I am a competitive person. I'm a win person. So how am I going to? And so, but the thing is you're coming up with the plan. Like you're coming up with the way to get out, and it's you coming up with that, and then you saying, hey, they're like, I'm going to build a spreadsheet. I'm going to go, yes, yes, no. I'm going to do the bracelets. But like you coming up with the whole system and then doing it, that's what's so powerful, whereas like someone, if they aren't going to buy into it, or if they don't come up with it, they might not even be motivated. So it's not like maybe the spreadsheet, like they might just, I get to send a spreadsheet to them and they're like, okay.
Oh yeah, they might hate it. They're like, this is dumb.
Right. But if it's their idea, or if it's saying, hey, okay, now I want to get better. I don't want to make my own tool. I saw that Cody has a tool. I'm going to go and use that. But it's the fact they're buying into it that makes the difference.
Well, and I think like for me, the reason I had to have those tools is because I had so many weaknesses. Like I know people who can do 75 hard and they can just crush it. Or even if they miss that day, they're like, oh, I'm going back to day 1. It could be day 40 and they're just back. And I just didn't have that mental fortitude, like on my own. Like I had to have some other thing to allow, and I think I like just games. So I just try and gamify everything, because then it's like, oh, it's more enjoyable for me now, like there's tangible wins and losses.
It's actually, games do make things a lot funner. I mean, you want to like with kids, like you want to like make things fun. Yeah. I love making little competitions.
Yeah.
Like if you make it a game, which includes like a little competition, like some sort of like you get points for something or win for something. I get so motivated by things like that, and it makes things fun. Like when I'm playing volleyball with my family, it's like because we're keeping score.
Oh, no, yeah. I coach my kids in sports, and some of the sports they keep score and some they don't. But whether they keep it or not, I keep it. And it's like at halftime, I tell our kids, like, all right, guys, we're winning, we're losing, this is it. Because I want them, I think what we have to be careful of is society wants to protect our children from losses, right? So it's like, everyone's good, trophy for everybody. But the problem is if we do that forever, then they get their first job at 19 and their boss is like, hey, you missed all your targets, like you're failing. And they're like, they don't know what to do. They've never lost in their life, Like you have to start to learn to lose. You've got to build that, just like you were saying no to temptation. It's the same thing. It's like when I play my kids in Guess Who, like I'm never going to let them win, If they do win, then that's awesome. But I'm the reigning champ currently, and it's like, because once they do win, they're going to have that jubilation of like, oh my gosh. And they're going to be so excited. They earned it.
There's a lot more satisfaction in beating you when you're not letting them win.
And I think if you can be good at losing, you can be great at winning. Right? Like my daughter used to, when I beat her in Guess Who, like jump on the love sack and like cry and like throw things because she was like dealing with this uncomfortable thing. But now she's like, oh, dang it, Dad. Like, I'm going to figure this out, And so now she's like thinking about, okay, what is he saying? What questions is he asking? So I can ask the same questions versus like in the beginning, she would just completely lose it, throw the board off the table, jump on the couch, like whatever,
But look at the growth and development she's getting from that in that analogy. I mean, now, like you said, now she's asking smarter questions. She's adapting. She's learning. She's growing. And I'm glad that you're talking about losses here. I'm glad you're talking about learning from losing, because those are the greatest ways to learn. I wish I could keep that chip on that chip on your shoulder that you get when you lose.
Yeah.
I wish I was Tom Brady and could keep that my whole life, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Somehow he always thought he was the underdog.
Dude, and I'm not talking about like maybe the last year, but that's what I think made him so amazing, is because he came in as an underdog and he never left the chip on his shoulder. If you ever watch his movie, like he always had something to prove. And it's when people the people that are motivated and like they're motivated by something to prove and like the winning and like the like just that path to get there, like winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But if your goal is that and you win the Super Bowl next year, like you said, where's their motivation? Like who can keep that going?
Yeah, it takes a skill for sure.
I wish I had that. Like we just always had that chip. You would just be you would be unstoppable.
That's absolutely true. I mean, I think that's what happens as you have those different progressions in your life. Like that's how I got overweight, is it was just like, oh, nice, I can go out to eat dinner now. Like before it was about a necessity. I had to be like really frugal with my food choices. And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, we'll just go out tonight. We'll go out the next night, and you're eating all this crap food that tastes good. Mm-hmm. And eventually it catches up to you, And I never realized it because in the past, it wasn't out of desire to be healthy. It was out of necessity because we didn't have enough money. So we had to eat like, oh yeah, I'll just have a sandwich for dinner, dear. Like, oh, I don't even need lunch today. I'm not hungry. It wasn't that I didn't want to go out to eat. It's that I knew I couldn't. And so once I could, it was like the floodgates open and I was just like, give me all the goodies, I can get dessert now and an appetizer, like where there was a time that I couldn't do that.
You could afford it.
Yeah.
Which that it speaks a lot to your relationship with money.
Yeah.
and how that affects every aspect of your life.
Yeah. Oh no, it does. I mean, I've got trauma from being younger, and so I know that, right? I have to be aware of like, and be careful how I navigate things because I've got that past trauma with money from when I was younger.
Same. Money's always been a big topic. You know, growing up, just like worrying about money, I suppose.
Yeah.
But like, I don't order appetizers to this day. I still don't order appetizers.
Yeah, I get it.
Because it's like, no, we don't. That's
not a thing.
Money.
That's not a thing that we do.
That's too much money. Who orders it? Yeah. Anyways.
I think what's cool for me too is like getting to the point now with this book. It's like, I think in my younger, like had I written a book when I was in my 20s, I would have wrote it to make money. Like that would have been the idea. Like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. It'll be a vehicle for money. Where now it's like, if I make money, that's awesome. But what I really care about is making a difference for people.
How your why is adapted.
You know, like, so I now have to be on Instagram because there's just a huge audience there, and I've never been on social media before. But like, I'll go through and I'll be seeing people. And I go to all these book platforms because that's like my audience. So I'm engaging with them. And someone had said like, oh, I would love to read this book, not mine, someone else's, but I just can't afford it, you know? So I sent her a message and said, look, I'll send you my book for free. Like, what's your email? I'll send you a PDF of my book for free, you know, because all that I really care about is that you get the message. And if it can make a difference, then that's awesome.
Yeah, that's says a lot about you. I think that's and it's good when you start having motivations, that type of motivation.
Yeah, that's not just tied to money. Because my beginning of my career, that was what all it was tied to. It was like, what can I do to make the most money?
Right.
Well, one thing about Cody too is he's a good person to have on your team. He's cheering people on. He said to me when we were at lunch, he said, if I think someone's worth following on social media, I'm going to like and comment every single post. And if I don't think it's worth it, I'll just unfollow them because everyone that I follow I want them to have my back just like I have their back. And I'm going to be their fan all the way. I think it's maybe it's because you weren't on social media.
Right. I don't have that like fatigue, you know, maybe that's it. But for me, it's like, you talked about being vulnerable before. It's like, especially like with your guys, like with your podcast, right? Like when you're putting videos out for that, like you're trying to grow something, and it's hard when you know you're going to be judged, right? Because you're doing something, so people are going to look at it and say, do I like it? Do I not like it? And it's like, I see you guys grinding. It's like, I'm liking that no matter what, you know, even if like you just had lunch today and you showed me a picture of it, it's like, yeah, he had lunch. Like, let's get it. Let's have that lunch, you know, because I know that it's hard for me to do it. Like you make a video and you're like, oh gosh, you know, I got to do it, you know, but I don't love the way I look. I don't like the way I sound, but I got to put it out there. And so I know how important it is to me when someone supports me. So it's like, if I'm following you and I made that conscious choice to see what you're doing in your life, I'm going to support you every way. Like, and it might just be a like maybe I don't have time to really watch your video, but I see you did it, so I'm going to like it. But if I do watch it and I'm like, oh, that's something, I'm going to comment because I know that's important to Instagram's algorithm. And I'll save it too, because Instagram wants that. They want you to save and share things. I'll share it. I'll save it. I'll do whatever I can to support them because it doesn't cost me anything. Like if I'm already going to be on the platform anyways, why not support all these people that I've chosen to say, like, I'm interested in what you're doing?
Yeah. I think that's awesome. Actually, it's
nice.
A
big character.
Imagine if everyone took that mindset, you know, especially in social media, like where we're always trying to help each other.
Well, and it's tangible, you know, like, because you can see it. Because imagine, like, in real life, if someone was like, hey, look at this cool thing I did, and you just walked by and didn't address, and it's your friend.
We're snobs on social media.
Yeah, because no one can see you.
Life.
You know, no one can see you doing it. So it's like, yeah. It's like, no, I'm going to like it. And if I think that your content is bothersome, or if I don't like it, then I'll just unfollow you. You know, but if I'm going to make that conscious choice to follow you, I'm going to be the best cheerleader that I can be.
I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, I'm new. Like my account's still private. Like I'm like not on social media at all, my personal account.
We're working on Callan.
Well, it's like part of it is just like, I've just always had a bad relationship with social media, just mentally. I think, you know, growing up, I've just never.
All the bad snaps.
Snapchat. That's funny.
Well, I think social media can be dangerous, right? Yeah, but there's a quote by Eckhart Tolle that says, your happiness isn't about the thing, it's about how you think about the thing. Yes. And I butchered that quote a little bit, but the premise is correct. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're unhappy looking at social media, it's not Ben's post that made you unhappy. It's how you feel about yourself that made you unhappy.
And that's what needs to be the difference. And that's the difference. I think there was times in my life where, you know, I'd get on there and I'd feel unhappy about myself.
Lesser than.
Yes. But that's not anyone else's fault. But imagine the mindset switch. when you start getting on and you start being happy for everyone.
Yeah.
And how you start being happier in your life instead of being like, oh, my life sucks. And then you like start talking, you know, and not that I did that, but I just seen people do that.
Yeah, not you, but other people.
My friend did it once.
Yeah. No, I have been guilty of just getting
course,
on
we
social
all
media,
are, you know?
social media and feeling like I'm less than. And so then I'm like, I don't want to be on social media at all. So I cut it completely out.
Yeah.
And this is me being vulnerable. And even this podcast is like being vulnerable. It's like taking a step, taking courage to go out of your comfort zone, to post things on that maybe will help other people. And that's like the purpose, the why, like to be able to help other people along their journey.
And I think doing the book helped me with that, because I think earlier I thought like there was only so much success. So like if Ben had some, it was like that he's taking it from me, you know?
Yeah.
But there's infinite amount of success out there. Like no one else's success will ever prohibit yours, you know? And so I finally like was able to realize like, man, I'm so genuinely happy for other people. Now it's like I see a shredded dude on Instagram, instead of being like, oh man, that sucks, I think like, man, that dude's awesome. I wonder what he's doing.
Yes.
Like I'm going to check out what he's doing. And if I want that, then I got to do what he's doing. And if I don't want to do what he's doing, then I shouldn't feel bad about that thing he has, because I don't want to do the thing he did to have the thing, you know? So I think it's all about, it's all in our mind, honestly.
Yes, it is. And I'm so much happier when I'm happier for other people.
Yeah.
And I do now. Like I genuinely love seeing like when people post things and seeing like what's going on in their lives. And like I said, if it's someone that like you don't like, just unfollow them.
Yeah, you don't
like,
have
you
to
don't
look
have
at
to
it.
like follow people you don't like.
Yeah.
But there's still a time thing for me on social media. I don't know if we want to talk about that, but I just like I don't want to spend time there either. I just feel like I have a hard time like just hopping in and like scrolling. But
We'll work on your trauma.
Well, and honestly, you're in charge of your time, right? So
Yeah.
like if that for you, like for me, I only do it early in the morning or late at night when my kids or my wife are asleep, because I don't want to be on that thing. But I also know it's like, it is a necessary evil that I have to do, or maybe I'll block out 30 minutes during the day where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And it's just work. I just think of it like work, you know, like I'm going to do this thing now, but I'm certainly not going to do it like when my kids' basketball game's going on or something, you know, like I'm going to be focused in that moment. So that way it kind of gives you the ability to not have that guilt, because it's like, oh, this is my time to grow this business on this platform.
well, and I'm realizing that like social media is so powerful.
Well, for what you guys are doing, you have to have it.
Yes, we have to. Exactly. And that's where I'm realizing like there is value, and you have to find a way to like, I think that's a good example, the way you said it. Like you pick your times and you're doing it for, you have a purpose behind it. It's not like you're mindless.
Well, and Ben made a good point about the calendar too. I got a funny story about calendars. When my wife and I were really young, we were both working, and she says to me, you know, you don't text me during the day. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm working. She's like, but I want you to text me. I said, you do? She's like, yeah. And I said, okay. So I put it in my calendar, text my wife like every day at 1. And she goes, I can't believe you put that in your calendar. Like, do you even love me? I was like, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, you should just want to text me anyways. And I said, look, I'm not in like the husband mindset. I'm in the work mindset, you know? And I was like, but you should be honored. I put it in my calendar because that's where I put everything.
Honored.
That's, or show my dedication, right? Because if it's important
you
to
are
you,
showing your love.
the only way I'm going to do it is if I have a reminder, because otherwise I'm just in my day and like, it's not on my mind. But you said it was important to you and I heard you. And so I said, I will not miss it. Like I'll put it in my calendar, I'll put a reminder on it, and every single day you're gonna get that text from me.
Bracelet, you can move it over.
Yeah.
Text the wife on one.
It's funny because I just read this book, Your World-Class Executive Assistant. And in the book, he's like talking about having his assistant take his wife like flowers and gifts and stuff like that.
How do you feel about that,
I
man?
don't feel good about it yet. Like,
Wait, they said that you should do that?
they said that you basically like have your assistant, like it's from you, but they go to the store and get it and wrap it up and have it to your wife.
Okay, and how do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm not there yet, but I'm warming up to the idea. But it's just, it's kind of along the same spirit. It's like, compare it to this: your wife gets nothing, or your wife gets less, or something like that, right? It's like, it feels a little weird at first, but I think if you realize that, you know, your wife's gonna get less if you don't.
Does the book
set it up?
Does the book suggest whether you should tell your wife that your assistant's doing?
That's an interesting question.
Well, the book actually does get into that, and okay, let me see if I can remember the story. He got all these flowers, gifts, and something really special like dinner reservations, And his wife was really grateful one time, and she's like, super like romantic with him or whatever. And he's like, I just have to tell you this, like, I didn't set any of this up. She's like, oh, I know. Your assistant set this up, but I'm still grateful to you.
Well, because it's the thought that counts, right? Like I think that his intention is, I know my wife wants this thing. This is my vehicle to accomplish that thing. And without my assistant, it's not feasible for me to do within the day. And I think that's okay.
Well, I think if you hired your assistant to do like the laundry, your wife would love it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the principles, the premise, it's there.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been just making notes because I've been taking so much away, but I think, it was really cool how you taught us about the abundance mindset, basically, is what I call that.
Yeah, they're totally right.
Just giving. That's one of my huge takeaways today. Another one is adaptation, right? Like, I hear all these different things and how something worked for you for a while and then you adapted. Yeah. And then something that worked for you for a while and you added on that.
Yeah.
I think that's important that once we get successful or we hit success once, I think a lot of times we keep doing what got us there.
Yeah.
And we forget to what my uncle calls vertical development, like keep building on that.
Well, yeah, because the things you did to get you here can only get you to there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can't get any farther than that with those behaviors because those behaviors equal this thing. So if you want this thing, then the behaviors have to be different to get there. It's kind of like golf. In order for me to get better at golf, I have to get worse initially. Because I can only score what I score now with the way that I play. Mm-hmm. So if I want to be better, I have to change my swing. I have to improve it. So I'm instantly worse.
Wow.
Because the only way to get better is to be worse for a little while until I can nail that new swing or nail that new strategy, right? And so I think that's why I love golf, because it's exactly that. Like I can get to where I can consistently shoot a 90, but now to shoot an 85, it's like I'm going to have to shoot a couple hundreds to work on this new thing I'm doing to get 5 strokes better.
Well, back to being okay with losing.
Yeah.
And the lessons that you're trying to teach your daughter.
Yeah.
Well, and failing fast, right? Like moving, like you probably heard this, how the cows run away from the storm, so they stay in it longer, but the bison run towards it, so it passes.
Oh, no,
sooner.
I've never heard that. That's super interesting.
Yeah, it's a really good metaphor on just like failing fast and as directly as you can so that you can get better, right? And with your analogy in golf, I love it. And I think it applies to businesses too. Like
absolutely,
your bottom line is going to be worse for some time.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. In fact, our VP of sales, we had to hire a new regional manager and he goes, "Oh, dude, can we afford to hire?" And I said, "Nope." I said, "But we also can't afford to not hire her."
Yes.
Will it work right now today? No, but she's going to give us the ability to grow. And so it will work out. The answer is no to both. You know what I mean?
I heard real business owners talk about that. You're just like planning for that growth and saying, well, hey, we got to get that extra employee now so that we're ready for when those sales comes in.
And what's interesting too about talking about business growth is, so I obviously have this growth mindset and I've got a company, Vibrant Management, and we didn't do any of the things that I'm talking about. We started our company and we just like did the things every day to just be a company, And then finally my business partner, Breck, was like, we need to bring in a business coach. And I, of course, said we can't afford it. And so we went back and forth and he wanted us to do what's called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so like we read all the books and stuff and I was like, dude, I think we can just do it ourselves. He's like, I don't think so. So we went back and forth. He ended up saying, okay, we won't do it. 2 weeks later, he comes to the office. He's like, here's the deal. We're doing it. And if it doesn't work, like I'll pay for it personally.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, okay, like we can't not do it now. And so we went.
What a partner.
Yeah. We went and we planned all of this stuff for ourselves, which is so interesting looking back on it. Like, how could I have ever operated a business without a destination? But we didn't have one. We just went to work every day and did the best that we could. And so now that we joined EOS, it's like, okay, we had a 1-year plan, we had a 3-year plan, and we had a 10-year plan. And then within that 1 year, we had rocks for every quarter, like the Franklin Covey thing, right? And so we grew exponentially because we finally had some direction. And so it's just so interesting now being on these podcasts and looking back like, wow, I can't believe, knowing what I know about like my life as an individual, I allowed myself not to do that for my business. So I think for the people listening, if you have a business, take those same philosophies because your business needs it too. Like it needs to know where you're going, especially your team. like our team's so much more motivated now because they actually get to see what we're working towards and why we're working towards it.
Kind of ties in too with, I asked you the one thing you wanted people to take away from your book, and you basically, I could sum it up by saying identity.
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't just go with the flow. Be willing to take a step back and do some vision casting. Write down how you want your life to look, and really take that time. I'll just share this. We have a family member who we feel like could really, like, me and my wife did this, goal setting retreat before our daughter was born, where we went away for a weekend and got so much out of it. And I feel like we have family members that we wish could just go do that, take that time to vision cast, because we think it would help them with their identity and their vision, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it ties in with what you're kind of getting into now about companies, right? Like, seeing the end helps you know your direction.
Yeah.
And I think we probably do it more as a company than as an actual person.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get stuck just checking boxes because that's what they're told to do.
Yeah.
Never step back and say, okay, what do I actually want?
Did you guys have a coach or a teacher that was helping at that goal setting session, or did the two of you just go and just like hash it out together?
It's actually Brody Fawcett's program, but it was just the two of us. So he has like a workbook.
Okay.
And then we just locked ourselves in an Airbnb.
That's good. And how long ago did you do that?
In September.
Oh, so pretty recent.
Yeah.
And how's it been since?
It's been great. Yeah. I mean, like, this is not new, the goal setting idea, but it's kind of new, like working it together as parents, and we're both entrepreneurs and stuff like that. So it's been really good.
That's awesome. I think that, so I've never been a religious person, but I do believe in the universe, and I believe that whatever that thing is that you believe in, right? Whoever that is, whatever that is, it wants the best for us. And so there's always signs in your life. Like if you say, I want to do this thing, and you went and did your goal setting, well, now I think you'll be available to see the signs that are like, oh man, there it is. Like, we got to do this, and that's what I think is so important, to have that vision, because otherwise you'll miss the signs. And I think too, if you say you want to do something, right, and then a sign comes up and you don't do it, that entity, that thing, the universe is like, oh, actually Ben doesn't want that. So that's not that opportunity. We won't do that anymore, because he said he wanted it, but I gave him a chance and he said no, And so I think that, like, you've really got to embrace it and say, if you want something and then you see a sign that's like, oh, if I do that, I'll be closer to that thing, you better take it, because otherwise the universe is like, okay, well, he doesn't actually want it. They want to give us whatever we want, whatever our habits are indicative of the thing that we're after.
It's funny, right back to your comment about the friend that you always says they're going to come to the game.
Yeah.
And they never do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, you stop inviting.
Yeah. And then one day he's like, bro, why don't you invite me to the games anymore? And he's completely unaware of the fact that he said no to you 100 times. Yeah. All he sees now is like, I don't get invited anymore, Yeah.
I kept the receipts.
Yeah.
I didn't show up.
Wow.
Well, this is a way off topic comment, but I want to say, and I hope you take this the right way, for a person that's not religious, you have a great optimism and light and everything about you. So,
well, I appreciate that. No, I don't take any offense to it, because I think, and I said that knowing, like, religion's a big part of your guys' life, and I think it's really important, right? Like, you need to have something, and I don't care what that thing is, but you need something that can keep you grounded and give you a sense of purpose. And there's so many foundational things in that, right, that allow you to be the best version of yourself. And just for me, it's just always been the universe, because it never made sense for me to subscribe to anything else. But I think everyone's different, right? That's really the premise of the book, is I would never judge someone for the choices that they make, just like I don't want them to judge me for mine.
Yeah, the book is really good about providing guidance without putting it in a box.
Yeah.
I'd say. I really like that about the book. How else? I mean, so people can buy the book. Where else can people find you?
So you can buy the book pretty much anywhere books are sold. So I say, like, if you have a favorite place to buy a book, then do it there. Like, if you love Amazon, or you love Barnes & Noble, or you love Target or Walmart, like, do that. You can buy it from me at codyadent.com, and you can get your bracelets at codyadent.com. And then you can obviously find me there, or if you just go to Google and type my name, CODYADENT, and that'll basically give you all the platforms that you need. And then my company's website is thevibrantteam.com. And so if you're in the hospitality space, you're looking for branding or marketing, that's really what we do.
Awesome. Yeah. We can't thank you enough, man. I have tons of notes, dude.
I know.
This has been
No, I'm excited and I'm grateful the chance to be able to meet and all the lessons we've learned. I mean, I feel like there's things I gotta apply in my life, you know, and get better. But hey, it's little wins, right? Let's do little wins every day.
And I think what's been so cool for me is like I would have not met you guys had I not been on Instagram, right? It's like if we want to talk about like the positivity of it.
For sure.
And then now there's this whole community of people in St. George who are like doing it, which is shocking. Like I would have never thought there's all these podcasts just based here. And I think too often in life, we don't have conversations like this.
Yeah.
You do with your wife or like maybe your best friend. But even then, like when's the last time you and your best friend sat down for an hour without a game on or a waitress or waiter
your phone
coming?
on your lap.
Right. Like the three of us have been connected in a conversation. And I think it's really shown me how important that is, right? Because now I'm doing it and you feel this, like you're energized by it, you know? And I think you've got to find a way to engage in meaningful conversations with people and with strangers. Like literally, I met you just an hour ago and you and I just had lunch together one day, you know? And now like we've got this shared connection and there's an ability for me to support your endeavors and you to support mine. And there's something so powerful in that. So I don't know how you do it more frequently and without a camera and microphones, but it's like, man, sit down and have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, that's one reason why I love podcasting. Just the idea of just having a conversation, being present, you know, and in this moment. Like, how many times have you checked your phone during this conversation?
0.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even like if you're.
It's pretty rare to be that present.
It is nowadays. Even like dinner. Have you ever checked your phone at dinner with your wife?
I mean, yes.
Like,
I actually never have. No, I'm kidding.
Dude, that's like, just goals, right? That's
well,
just
it's
goals.
funny too,
but
because
we do. It's
oh
crazy.
yeah. Well, and I think like so here I am with, for lack of a better word, like strangers having this amazing conversation. But think
used
about
to be strangers.
Yeah, used to be. Think about like you're in an elevator and someone gets in, and what do? Pull out your phone, and even if you have nothing to look at, you just pretend you're looking at something, right? To avoid having that conversation. So I think maybe a part of this takeaway for me has been like, man, embrace those opportunities. Like ask that person in the elevator where they're from, where they're headed, where they're going, you know, because there's so much that life has to give us. I just think too often we've got blinders on and we miss it.
Well, that gives me chills. And that's a huge takeaway from me because like you said, I mean, there's two, like, you on social media, like reaching out, like you reached out. And sometimes when we're in the elevator, we don't reach out.
We never do. Or even if you see someone who needs help, you're like, that's too bad. That person's having a hard time, you know?
Right. And that's a huge lesson for me. Like how much there's so many people out there that we can learn from and that connection that we can make with people. But it takes someone who's on there, who's using it for good, using the platforms or their experiences of places for good, and then reaching out and having that, just the I guess humility sometimes to just say, vulnerability back to that we can connect. And I'm really grateful for it. I'm glad that you did and that we can connect.
Yeah, me too. This has been great. You guys are awesome.
Just to reemphasize, how funny is it that Instagram, which is pulling so many people away from like real human connection, is actually what brought us together. It just shows me that I think we're using it the right way because we've had the most, direct, connected conversation, and it got put together basically through social media, which
100% through social media. That's the only reason that it happened.
Yeah. And so I think we got to just make sure we're using it the right way.
Well, I think that goes back to you're in control of your life, right? Like there's nothing wrong with Instagram. It's how you choose to use it.
Yeah.
Right. So you decide how you're going to use the vehicles in your life.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, cause I could go on the conversation side of like the negativity of social media, why like not to be on it, but
I was with you for years, for decades. Like I never existed and I would have had that exact same conversation.
Yeah. And I'm for sure coming out of it. But when there's people that you care about, when you really care about people, like my brother, he's in Europe right now. Like guess where I get to go and catch up on what my brother's doing with his life.
Yeah. Right.
On Instagram.
That's awesome.
Like if I want to go see what he's doing today and like what he's going through, like the song he listened to. And then when I think about that, like when you care about someone so much, like I actually do want to, like, I want to know that. I want to see that.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I want to be a part of your life. Like, but that's again, maybe surrounding yourself with that great group of people.
It's very important in life who you decide to surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Well, we surround ourselves with the right guy today, Callan.
Yeah,
we can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is a blast. You guys are awesome. Thanks for the platform and the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's another episode of the Beyond Networth Podcast.
Thanks, everybody.